Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Urban Legends video. Thank you as always for your suggestions. I'm going to begin a new series here based on those suggestions, and I'll continue them towards the end of the week. So please be on the lookout for some new videos in the next coming days. With this particular suggestion, I selected it because it was something that has been suggested heavily before, but I debated about whether I should include it in my Cryptids and Monsters video or my Urban Legends video, and ultimately I decided to include it here in my Urban Legends videos because based on all of the information and the details in the accounts given by others out there, it does fall under more of an Urban Legend status, kind of like the Bunny Man Bridge or some of the other urban legends that I've talked about in the past. I mean, like stuff like the Donkey Lady Bridge and other type of encounters. I think that's where it falls under this kind of category, because still, even towards this day, there hasn't been really any concrete evidence. Nothing like, let's say, pictures or sounds, or in some cases videos that some of my Cryptids and Monsters videos where people have found evidence of them. Instead, this is more along the lines of just tales tied to strange encounters with these humanoid type beings. And what I'm talking about here are the black-eyed kids. Again, an urban legend type status of entities that have been suggested to me for quite a while now. So I finally got around to talking about them here, and there are definitely lots of information to share. So I'll just highlight a few of the encounters because apparently there are many of them out there. I did not realize that there was this whole set of strange occurrences with these entities, whatever they are. It's a lot like with the Aswang, that I just talked about a couple videos back. It seems like there's almost like an entire race of these entities or these beings that are in here in this world, and there are just multitudes of people encountering them. So what are the black-eyed kids, or in some cases called the black-eyed children? And what they are is essentially just normal looking kids up to one point. And what I mean is this: they are your average kids. They are your average children. Whatever you imagine a child, let's say that's 8 or 9 years old, that is what they are. They do not stand out in any other way. They dress normally. They dress in clothes that you and I would normally see. Children, in some cases, it's been reported that they dress in outdated fashions, but it's not really too much in those cases. It seems to be just rare along those lines. But with the black-eyed children, the black-eyed kids, it seems to be that they just dress like anyone else. In fact, there was one encounter where the boy was dressed in a Spider-Man shirt, to give you an example of how normal they look. But that one point that I was talking about earlier has to do with their eyes. They're called the black-eyed kids for no other reason but for the fact that their eyes are solid black. They don't have any white areas in their eyes. They don't have any normal looking pupils. Their entire eyes are completely black, and that has been the most absolute standout scary feature of any encounters with these black-eyed kids, because those eyes seem to have some kind of hypnotizing effect on those that they encounter. And there have been a multitude, an absolute multitude of encounters, and they're a full gamut of encounters too. It's not like the usual, like with some of my Cryptids and Monsters videos where they're encountered, let's say, out in the middle of nowhere. No, in some cases, they've been encountered in neighborhoods, in gas stations, in military compounds, no less. And so I'm going to highlight a few of those encounters here in a minute. Now, again, with those kids, the main theme seems to be that people are running into them either by accident, or they find the kids already standing in their house of residence. And for whatever reason, the other main theme seems to be that these kids, once they come across whoever they're trying to find, or the person that comes across them on accident does so, the common theme seems to be that they want to ask this person to be let inside their home, or in some cases, if it's their car, to be let inside their car. So far, there hasn't been any proof as to why they want to be let inside their home or let inside the person's car, because most memorably, when something like this happens, people get the hell out as quickly as possible and don't let these strange looking kids inside their home or inside their car. So we haven't had any proof of what happens afterward when someone has let these kids into their residence or inside their car. But if something like that happens and there's actual encounter regarding that, then I'll let everyone know. But that seems to be the main theme. They're always in pairs. There's sometimes two of them, sometimes there's even a group of them, and they always seem to come across people at their residence or in some cases at their homes, like if they're in a military compound, or in some cases even, again, just getting gas along those lines. And they always seem to ask about trying to either get inside their home or get a ride in their car. Now, those black eyes are black solely 100% the entire set of eyes. There is no discernible white. Think of it like a set of black holes. They just seem to have no light shining off of them, no light emanating from them. It just seems to be like a center where it just sucks all the light surrounding it, and that seems to be the most common theme tied. Now, the first encounter ever recorded with these black-eyed kids is actually somewhat recent. Unlike some of the other urban legends and cryptids and monsters where they go back hundreds, if not thousands of years, no. In this case, the first encounter was back in 1998, January 16, and it was by a journalist named Brian Bethel. And he said that, according to him, he was parked in his car. I don't know why he was parked in his car. Maybe he was waiting on somebody. Maybe he was just taking a break. But for whatever reason, he was inside his car, just parked, and all of a sudden 2 boys approached him. And the other thing that's interesting about these black-eyed kids is that they always seem to have some kind of very white type olive skin. Like, it's very pale. Almost like it's, I guess the word I'm looking for is where, like, corpse-like, where it does not look healthy, it does not look normal, not the usual type of, let's say, pigmentation that you and I would associate with somebody who's living. Instead, it seems to be like it's like a decaying set of skin, but again, not actual decaying skin, like you and I would think of, let's say, of a corpse, but it has that same color. And so that's what he first noted whenever they approached him inside his car. And they told him just nonchalantly that they were on their way to the movies. They had forgotten their money to go to the movies, and so whatever means they were trying to get through to the movies, maybe by bus or maybe by train, they didn't have the money for it, and so they asked him for a ride. He said it was at this point, though, that it was just the uneasiness created by these boys that gave him a quote-unquote fight or flight response. Like, normally, if we had 2 small children approach you and I, it would just be not something that you and I would instantly be scared of. Like, we wouldn't have that fear growing within us or that panic mode like this guy was experiencing. But for whatever reason, these boys, they were emanating it towards him. I mean, he had that sudden instinct that something was really wrong here and that he should get the hell out of there. And then only when the boys, because it was at this point that he wasn't really responding to them because of the panic mode he was in, and it was only when the boys started to get more demanding of having a ride that he suddenly noticed what stood out now that wasn't there before, and that was their quote-unquote coal black eyes. He saw these eyes straight at them. I mean, they were looking at him, he was looking at them, and to him it seemed like they were looking through him. And whenever he saw this, then he became paralyzed with fear. And it was at this point that the boys knew that for whatever reason, their opportunity to try to get into their car, again, it's unknown why these black-eyed children, why they try to keep getting into houses or in cars or locations. But in this case, they realized that the opportunity for it was now slim to none, and so they started to get really rowdy with him, and he just floored it at that point. He just exited as quickly as possible, and that was it. But that's considered the very first encounter, and that seems to be the most common theme with the encounters, where these children, they don't really attack people. They don't really harm people. In fact, there's pretty much only been like one instance apparently where like an arm was grabbed, and that was the most severe example of anything that these blackout children have done. So they don't go carrying around bats. They don't harm people in any manner, but still their appearance, the way they talk, the way they act, and especially with their eyes, the way they look there, it's so alarming that it's enough to make people scared. And here are some other examples, and again, these are a full gamut of examples to showcase just how bizarre and how random and how many locations these blackout children seem to be. There was a man in Dallas who arrived home from work, and he was either coming home from work or he was coming home from some destination, and then he saw there was a boy just right at his door. Freaky enough, there's a boy standing right there at his door, and I'm sure he had that moment where he was like, oh, hello, hi, can I help you? Something along those lines. And then that's when the boy just calmly said, I think it's food time, you should invite me inside. And of course the man would probably be freaking out at that point. But the scariest part of this encounter was that the man at his home, he had a pit bull, and the pit bull came running towards the front, probably as customary whenever the man was coming home from any location. But the minute that the pit bull encountered this boy, it whimpered and ran away. And in fact, the way the man from Dallas said later on, this pit bull hid underneath his bed for several days afterward. And of course the man, it turned out he did not let the boy inside his home at all. He just presumably just went straight in and locked the door, locked all the windows, and that was it. There was another man whose name was Paul, and he said he was home alone when all of a sudden he heard a knock on his door. And when he opened it, probably looking through the the little peer hole first, that's when he saw there was two kids. He estimated their age to be about 10 years old, and they were standing on his porch or whatever the location is in front of his door, and they had their heads down. Creepy enough, right? I mean, imagine encountering somebody when the elevator opens and there they are just standing by themselves, and they have their head down, just standing completely still. So you can imagine the scenario that this guy was in. And they just simply said to him at that point, again, they didn't say hi, they didn't say, introduce themselves or anything along those lines. All they said was, hey, we just thought we'd stop in for a bit. And then they kept stating and then wanting to go into his house. And it was at that point that he tried to get a better look at them, and there was a reason why they had their head down, because the minute that they looked up for a brief moment, that's when he saw that they had their eyes were solid black. And then that's when he freaked out and he closed the door and did not let any of them in at that point. And there was another person, a guy by the name of Jason Offutt, and apparently he's a researcher into the black-eyed children phenomenon. He says this was his encounter. Oh, my apology. This was his, based on his research, this was an encounter that he came across from a person named Karis Holdsworth. And this happened in Northern Ireland. So again, now we're going towards another location, another part of the world. So far we've talked about some of the encounters here in the U.S., but now apparently the phenomenon seems to be in other parts of the world. And this Karis person, she said she saw two teenagers at night. It was around maybe 10:45 p.m. at night, and they were just standing around in her yard with some hoodies over their head. And they had the backs to her. So there they were, standing in front of her yard, again, in complete silence, in complete frozen stance, with their hoodies on, and then they were having their backs towards her. And then one of them turned to her whenever she came out to see what was going on. And apparently they were able to communicate with her, at least according to her experience. The way it seemed like to her, they were able to communicate with her telepathically, because all they said when she was trying to disseminate what was going on, they told her no need for that, probably referring to trying to investigate what was going on. They said, we just want to borrow your phone, miss. And then when she saw those pitch black eyes, she ran back straight into her home, locked everything. The boys came up to the door still, knocked on it for a good while. And then that's when things stopped. It looked like they overheard her calling for her friend in a panicky mode to try to come over as quickly as possible, and then that was it. And then one of the most freakiest encounters seems to be with it looks like a encounter on a military compost or a military post. I believe it was in North Carolina, and what had happened was a gentleman was there. I guess he was in the barracks, or he was in some location where he lived on the fort itself. And when he was there, it was Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. Yes, he was in the barracks and he was sleeping late at night just watching a movie. This happened back in 2009, to give you an idea of how recent it was. And this was late at night, and all of a sudden he heard a knock at his door. And so when he opened it, he figured that it was maybe his fellow military roommate, because maybe he forgot his keys, and so he was not able to have access into it. So with no fear or panic in him, this Marine at the camp just walked up to his door, opened it, and then that's when he saw these two kids, these two black-eyed kids. And he said that his first instinct was to just slam the door, to just try to make sure that, whatever panic mode was being created, that this was it, that he was not going to have any of it. He was just going to lock the door. But then this is what he described, and how he described this, or how this quote came about, I don't know, but this is his direct quote. He said, "Once I saw those eyes, I couldn't take my eyes off of their pitch black eyes. It was like they were sucking me in. I felt horrible and was suddenly frightened for my life, like I needed to immediately take cover. They just stared at me with those goddamn eyes. I took a quick look up and down the walkway to see if any other Marines were out, but there was nobody in sight. I turned back to the kids, who I noticed had taken a step forward toward me. I got the feeling like I was being hunted, like these kids were predators and out for their next meal or something. Instinct gave way to reason, and I decided to listen to that voice and shut the door and locked it." That's another theme too, and I had alluded to earlier about the hypnotizing factor. It seems like once these kids, once they get their eyes locked onto someone, it seems to create that effect where the person is realizing that they should do something, that they should get out of there, but they're being hypnotized to not do anything, to just simply stay silent, to stay quiet, to stay still, and that way these kids can finally get in to the home, residence, or car that they're trying to get into. But again, there hasn't been any encounter yet where the kids have been successful. People seem to snap out of it. They have enough willpower to do so, and then that's it. That's when they simply the story ends with these encounters there. So the black-eyed children, what are they? There have been much debate on the internet about what their existence is. Some people are saying that they could be human alien hybrids. Maybe they're entities from other places, from other planets, from other dimensions, that are just trying to do something with regards to humans. Why it always involves trying to get inside the home or residence, I don't know. There are others that are saying that these could be a race of vampires, kind of like the Aswang again, that have been intertwined within the population, and this is their way of discreetly staying alive and staying current, because maybe they're trying to get home into the homes of people to feed on them. Again, these are just some of the ideas that people have. Others are mentioning that they could be ghosts, they could be more of a paranormal stance, like demons. And then finally, some people are stating that they're nothing else but 100% hoaxes, because it's so easy to simply get contacts, special made contacts, that you could have. That, you and I have seen pictures of it on Google Images of people where they have these special made contacts, and they make their eyes look like very bizarre things, and all it would take is simply putting them on and encountering a few people here and there, normal looking kids, just trying to play pranks on the adults and other colleagues out there, and all it would take is a few encounters for that stuff to go viral, and that's where some people are saying that it is nothing but hoaxes. But anyways, the black-eyed kids, the black-eyed children, has anyone else encountered them before? Any other stories that we can add to this urban legend? Again, what's so fascinating about this is that it is so recent. The earliest encounter again being 2009, that this phenomenon is still growing. In fact, there's probably going to be many more encounters with these black-eyed children, whether they're legitimate encounters, like the real deal, like people have come across, whatever these strange entities are, or if they're nothing but, again, kids just playing pranks and using the internet to try to fuel those pranks. Who knows? But if anyone has any particular encounters that they wanted to share, please post your comments, share them below. It'll be fascinating to see if anyone has any stories to tell about these urban legends, these black-eyed kids. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.